Okay, I'm here with the Ring Brothers. This is one of 3 of their reveals. We are here at the BASF booth. I guess that's how we're going to say
BASF.
it. BASF
Yep.
booth. I'm here with Ryan, the lead fabricator manager, and I'm here with Hunter, who's the operations manager, or you could call him a lead manufacturing engineer type deal. So I've asked them to pick 3 things that they have done that is their favorite things on here that you might not see when you first look at these cars. You know, like there's so much to take in, but these 2 are all about the details here. So there's plenty of Easter eggs here, and I have these guys here to pick 3 things to talk about. So I'll hand it off to you,
Sure.
Hunter.
So we'll start on the inside. Ryan will be good. He'll go over a lot more of the details on the inside, but just something small to come from a machining standpoint. A lot of the things that you see within this rolls is made to look stock. However, it's not. So a small little indicator, for example, is all the turn knobs we CNC machine on our 5-axis and then send it off to AIH Chrome to basically get a high finish polish to make it look like a stock.
That's very cool.
And then if we kind of step towards the back, again, it's very small detail stuff, but when it comes to badging, we take a lot of pride in what we name the cars. We try and do something that's very characteristic to the car. So the name Paramount actually comes from the farm name of the owner's dad's farm.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's a little bit of a tribute to him, and that was kind of something we wanted to do. But from a machining standpoint, everything that we do when it comes to badges, nothing is flat. So everything has a little bit of a curvature. Typically, it's domed in both directions. And then what was a little bit of a challenge in this, because it's such a fine script, we had to be very careful in our toolpath layout to make sure that we had a toolpath that would account for that and not any form of impurities when it came to making it.
It doesn't even look machined. It's that good. It looks stamped on.
And then the third challenge that we did is, so this wasn't machined by us, but it was custom made. When it comes to the wheels, similar to in the newer Rolls-Royces, we wanted to make sure we had the self-leveling center caps. Ooh. So as you're driving, the Rolls-Royce emblem always stays vertical as it should be.
Mint. That is awesome. Hell yeah. Well, I think those were really cool. Let's hand it off to Ryan and see what 3 things he has to show us.
All right, so back to the inside of this car. I'm going to open the back door here. So when this car came to us, the original 1961 Rolls had a driver's partition, like a limousine with partition glass, and this seat actually was up about here. Now, I drove this car into the shop the first time, and I honked the horn every time I turned the wheel with the seat all the way back. So it was not designed for somebody my size.
Just for me. Fun size.
Correct. And the owner is taller than I am yet, so it definitely wasn't going to work for him. So what we did was we took the seat, the original 61 roll seat, and essentially cut it lengthwise. So the back half of the seat is 61 rolls, and then incidentally, widthwise, 57 Chevy Bel Air was the same width. So the front half of the seat is actually a Bel Air, and we grafted the rear section of that seat to the front, so it has the trays that flip up just like the original. This was originally wood, which Gabe's wrapped in leather, and then the front portion of the seat is that 57 Chevy, so it can slide back and forth on drivers. Something else that's pretty unique to this car, that at first glance you don't really realize what all went into it, but that's these panels here. So these were, after we decided on the shape for the interior panel for the door, we actually cut these out of aluminum, fitted it for all the holes for the armrest, the window crank, and the door handle, and then sent them off to be hydro dipped. So before we did that, we had a selection of different wood grains to choose from. Some were more gray, some were more brown, and looking at leather samples, paint samples for the exterior against chrome, we laid those all out, and we actually had a group vote. So we had a little piece of tape, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and everybody looked at it. Everybody had an input, and the consensus was to go with this one. So that's what we did.
Wow, that is cool. That looks so real too. I just want to touch it. It is not real wood, but it looks like it. That is cool.
The last thing I want to point out on this car, which everybody misses at first glance until they actually get in or stick their head in. But well, I tell you what, you're the host. You can hop right in that back seat, and when you do, look up.
I'll take very good care of it. Oh my gosh.
So we have a Starliner headliner in this car. So there's every one of those little light up stars you see is connected via fiber optic to a main control hub that then sends all that light signal through the headliner and out into the cabin. So it really gives a cool vibe to the inside of the car.
This is better than a sunroof. I like this.
Absolutely.
I think more cars should have this. This is relaxing. Awesome. Well, all right. Thank you, guys. I think we'll move on to the next build and see what everybody thinks. Thanks. Okay. Okay. We're here at car number 2, and this is probably my favorite car. This is their 69 Charger, and I am so excited to have them tell us some of the Easter eggs they have on this one. So we'll start with Ryan. Tell us 3 things here we would not see at first glance.
All right. Well, we're going to start in the front of the car. So number 1 is this grille. Factory, they were plastic, and the grille surround was 7 pieces of stamped stainless or stamped aluminum. There was a night in the fab shop, we were looking at the car, and these naturally sagged on both sides because they only had 3 attachment points, and they're plastic. So that's just what happened. And we didn't like it. We thought the best option would be to come up with a carbon grille, and then from there we can do a bunch of other things. So what we ended up doing was scanning the entire front of the car so we could render the grille in SolidWorks. We straightened these lines, we squared up the corners, and then we had Gemini lay some beautiful carbon fiber. Once we had that, of course, then the trick is to utilize the stock headlight windows and the stock grille and get those mounted in there. So that presented some unique challenges. These actually float, so factory these were attached to the grille itself, and now it's not attached except just on the sides. So we're attached here and we're attached here, and it's one of those things that you don't really see first off, but they're actually floating in there, same as the headlight doors. You can go all the way around on those doors. Cool. So the next thing that we had to do with that grille then was come up with some trim that complemented the carbon. So what we ended up doing was off of that 3D scan, guys in machine shop started with a giant chunk of billet, about 6 inches thick, as wide as the car is, and they had to have 2 of them. So they had to have a fixture plate to hold the piece, and then the piece that they were actually going to turn into the trim. And it was in excess of 500 pounds of aluminum, whittled down to like 2.3 pounds. So after we got that done, we sent it down to Steve at AIH. He did the chrome plating on it, and everything just fit together beautifully. And it's one of those things where if you look at a 69 Charger, they all tend to have that little dip, and that was something that we were able to avoid.
Okay. While we're down here,
yes, ma'am.
I need you. Can we have your Bentley?
Ring Brothers.
We needed that. All right.
So the next thing I want to point out on this car is the bumper. We did both of them, the front and the rear, similarly, but we'll just talk about the front. So factory, these hung out a couple inches on either side. They stuck out about 1 inch, and they definitely weren't square. So once we had the fenders in the shape we wanted, the grille the shape we wanted, taking that stock bumper, putting it in place, it hit in funny spots, had a weird gap in funny spots, so that just doesn't fly. On top of that, right here was a large cutout for a front license plate.
Ah, okay.
So what we did to start with was we cut this bumper here and here and welded this piece directly right to the car so it could hold its place, and that's where we wanted it to be. From there out, then we either added material or removed material to get it to fit with an even gap to the chrome on the grille and an even thickness going down to the carbon out to the edges of the fender. Of course, that didn't line up. The shape wasn't the same as the fender. So this ended up essentially getting completely remade out of 1/8 inch steel. Each one of these triangles is essentially a separate piece. It was all welded together, ground and polished until you see what we have here today.
Beautiful.
The last thing in this car that most people don't pick right off until they either shut the door themselves or hear the door shut is the latches that we have. So 69 Chargers don't normally sound like that.
Yeah,
right?
You gotta give it some weight.
It's a nice shutting door. So what we have is a modern latch from a modern car and a modern striker. So those are also hooked up to electric. So this car has electric locks. You see there's no keyhole on the outside of the door.
Yeah.
So the owner has a fob. You can unlock the door, pop the trunk, and that's all done via having these modern latches, and they make for the door to shut just incredibly and without slop and moving around. You know, so many of the old ones, they never shut the same way twice.
Yeah.
It'll be in a different position. It'll sag, whatever, and this allows us to adjust it, fine tune it to get it just where we want it to be. So that's my 3 things. I'll turn it over to Hunter.
Awesome, thank you. All right, what you got for us, Hunter?
All right, so I'll actually start us off with actually going to probably the most challenging machining thing that we ran into for this car, and that would actually be the hood scoops. So these hood scoops are each in themselves a single piece, all CNC machined on a 5-axis, but what we really ran into is, one, they're very thin, so that alone creates its own set of challenges from a machining standpoint. The other thing too is there was actually no way of fixturing them. So we had to machine them so that they would be smooth both the top and bottom, because they were going to have a transparent coat finish, which is what HRE was able to help us out with doing, so they would match the wheels. And because of that, he also had to figure out how we were going to get them to mount to a carbon fiber hood without seeing or taking any dimensions from that hood.
Oh, wow.
So using all the CAD technology that we had, we tried to do it as best as we could. And then Ryan Fielding actually helped us out quite a bit with getting to give that seamless, perfect look, as you're able to see here.
Yeah, that fits so well on that.
And then on the sides, doesn't matter either which side you have, we have something that kind of mimics that, which is our second component, and that is our side scoops. So normally in these 69 Chargers, what you typically see is you see a fake side vent that goes into the doors. We wanted to keep that original side vent look of maintaining like a true Charger feel, but get rid of that and make something that was going to be functional. So we removed the skin from the door, basically on this upper body line. Sean created a flat skin that basically maintained the body lines all the way through front to back, got rid of that side scoop, and re-welded it to where we cut it off before.
Wow.
And then we reworked the fenders and CNC machined the side scoops to mimic what we were going to do on the hood, and then also CNC machine grill inserts that we chrome plated and put into that.
True. So beautiful and functional.
Absolutely.
I love it.
So the last one that we're going to talk about a little bit is some pieces on the inside. So one thing that people never really are going to ever see is the running board. We CNC machined that and then chrome plated it, but we made sure we had it so it had the TUSK logo.
Oh yeah.
So this car is powered by 1,000 horsepower HELLEPHANT, and that is such a powerful, unique, rare engine that felt this was deserving of a name fitting to that motor. So just like in the real world, the elephants are such a revered, powerful, rare species that TUSK, being basically what they're killed off for, is what makes this so powerful. So just like the elephants being protected and embellished in different cultures, we use that in the emblem to have a little bit of a carat or a gold tip. And we actually use 24 karat gold in the badging.
Oh wow.
To carry that through and give that full embellished look.
Oh man, be careful where you park this thing, then. That is awesome. I love all the details. All right, thank you so much, Hunter.
Absolutely. And
stay tuned for number 3. Okay, I'm here with Ryan and Hunter for car 3 of 3 for the reveals. This is their 65 Mustang sitting at the Gentex booth. So I'm going to start with Hunter, and he's going to show us his 3 things that you wouldn't see at first glance.
Yeah, so starting with 3 things, basically one of the things that we wanted to start with is, just like we've touched with all the other cars with the badging, so Something that's super unique on this one that we didn't do on the car that we did similar to this, which was Cage, is rather than 3D printing some of our stuff, we tried to focus and do as much CNC machining as possible. So, for example, on the horse here, what we did is we CNC machined the entire horse emblem, same for the back, and then we mounted it in a way so that it would look like it's floating in the CNC housing around.
Oh yeah, it does. That's so cool.
And that carries through all the way to the trunk as well. To the trunk, it's got a very similar feel. You kind of have this.
Oh wow, yeah. It does look like it's floating. That's so cool.
And then moving to the side of the car, something that you typically see on a stock version of these 65s is these side vents. They typically will sit out a little bit further and extrude. What we decided to do is we CNC machined this and then we recessed it inside to give it a little bit more of a flush look.
Okay, yeah.
And make it a lot more cohesive with the body lines and not be such an eyesore.
Yeah, no, that looks way better.
And the last thing is this car is set up to look very retro. However, it's got all the modern amenities that you'd see in like a newer car, such as Bluetooth, all electric.
Oh man.
Electric convertible top, electric windows. Everything looks like it's a crank, but it's all just a...
So it's not really a crank?
It's not actually a crank.
Oh, you just push it down. That is cool. Okay, now that's super cool. I love these cars, but I do kind of get tired of the crank. I mean, there's very few times I think we miss that, especially when you have to reach into the passenger side.
Yep. So that's my 3 things, and hand it over to Ryan.
Awesome. What you got for us, Ryan?
Go up front. So we're at the front, but on the entire car, what you don't notice at first glance, unless maybe you're a diehard 65 Mustang guy, is that we actually widened the car 1 inch on each side.
Ooh.
So through the fender, we actually made a whole new top to the fender with this return coming down, but we added in 1 inch. So this was cut on this body line, and then we made this piece 1 inch bigger than the one before. And that went through the doors, through the quarter. We widened the whole car 1 inch on this side, 1 inch on that side. So in doing that, you also need to widen everything else. So the headlight buckets were widened, the quarter extensions on the backside were widened. Everything grew in proper proportion to make it not look small. So like the taillights that we have in the back look like 65 Mustang taillights, but they're just a little bit bigger overall. So if you put that stock taillight in there, it just looks small. You can't really put your finger on what's different or what's wrong, but it just looks small. So everything has to grow. Obviously the bumper grew 2 inches overall. Same in the rear, the splash pan in the rear, and the one in the front. So not only did we make a new splash pan to lower it and widen it to accommodate for the 2 inches, we also sunk in these marker lights. So these were CNC machined.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And the marker lights themselves were 3D printed. The splash pan itself was made out of sheet metal aluminum. So essentially we just started with the center section and built out from there. One of the things we did, we come over to this side. This is another thing that you wouldn't notice at first glance. So this body line here for the headlight bucket, that's factory line. On a stock Mustang, once it gets behind the bumper, that would have gone straight down, almost looking like it's tilting forward.
Okay.
And it just creates an odd line. So we cut the fender back. We extended it, of course, to make it longer, but we cut it back so that this line continues through at that very same angle. And it's one of those small things where if you don't do it, something just seems off.
Right, yeah.
Once you do it, you don't even realize that it's there because it just makes sense. The headlight buckets, of course, had to grow 1 inch on each side. So these look just like stock buckets, but they're actually made out of 3/16 aluminum. So they were handmade, to accommodate the headlight and that added width. And then with that, the only carbon fiber piece on this car is the center grill section. So even though it's painted, there's no exposed carbon. That's all carbon fiber, and that's modeled to flow into that extended headlight bucket. So
okay.
Yeah, that's where we're at on this one.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Well, let me know what you guys think if you want to see more of these awesome builds. Thank you.